This episode is brought to you by Levitt Pavilion. This summer, check out one of my favorite outdoor concert venues in Denver, Levitt Pavilion. May through October, Levitt is offering ticketed and totally free all-ages concerts. I feel like we just go to anything that's free because it's like the kids can be at the show and people aren't weird about it, and you can bring a picnic. It's awesome. Some of the free shows this season include Iskali, Melvin Seals, War and Treaty, Sunny War, Charlie Tuna, and more. To RSVP for free shows and buy tickets, plus see the full concert schedule, go to levittdenver.org. That's levittdenver.org. Today on CityCast Denver. Legislators' drinking habits have taken center stage at the Capitol this session as one representative is called out for being publicly intoxicated. Me and producer Paul Caroli dig into the culture of booze on the House floor, plus a follow-up on the bill to ban algorithms that set your rent. Oh, and make sure to stick around to the end of this one. We've got a great deal to share with you on local grocery delivery, courtesy of our sponsor, Pine Melon. But if you're listening on the ad-free members feed, you get an exclusive sneak peek of a very special project we've been working on. Today is Tuesday, May 7th. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Hey, Paul.
Hey, good morning, Bree.
So you were telling me that you stopped by the encampment at the Tivoli Quad over the weekend. What did you find out?
Yeah, I mean, we had just been talking about it all week,
Totally.
We covered it so much last week. We asked the mayor about it. And then by the end of the week, the protests were still going. So,
and, we had the editor of the school newspaper on to talk about it. It's still going strong. So what'd you find out?
Well, it was such a nice day on Saturday. I was biking around downtown and I was just like, why don't I just go see for myself what's going on? And it was kind of fun because I was biking through Auraria campus and I saw a bunch of tents set up, but then I biked up and it was like an AAPI festival happening.
Oh, really?
On a different side of the campus, totally separate. You couldn't hear anything happening.
I look at our events regularly. Yeah. I'm surprised I missed that, but also not surprised. That's a huge campus. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, just festivities.
Sure.
It's kind of fun that there's a festival on one end and then on the other end,
protest.
I did eventually find it, a protest at the Tivoli Quad.
Sounds like a college campus.
Exactly.
Honestly.
Exactly.
So what's going on right now?
Well, it was really interesting, and I haven't seen this reported anywhere else, but I went down and I wanted to talk to a source of mine, someone who I've talked to about a different topic for years now, actually. A great source, really reliable guy, and he happens to have been staying at the encampment for, I think, at least since last Wednesday. He's been working as a street medic. That's kind of his background.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I just asked him, what's up? What's been happening? And he was like, oh boy, got a little spicy out here last night.
Really?
And he was talking about Friday night. And this is the thing I haven't seen anyone else talk about.
I was just going to say, I don't think I saw anything reported.
No reports. The latest reports I had heard was that Police Chief Ron Thomas had said that he was not going to send police out to the encampment anymore, that it seemed like these protests were peaceful and he was not going to send DPD anymore.
I saw him at Cinco de Mayo in Westwood
this
weekend, so he definitely wasn't there.
Yeah, he had a big weekend. Anyway, so what my guy told me was it got a little spicy on Friday night when about 80 to 100 counter-protesters showed up on campus and they were gathering outside the Golda Meir house. Which is just a few blocks away, also on campus. Golda Meir, of course, was Prime Minister of Israel. I think the first woman Prime Minister of Israel. So obviously a very important person for Israelis, but also Palestinians.
Interesting, because there's a house dedicated to her on the 9th Street Park.
Where she lived.
Oh, that's right, as part of the Auraria campus. Mm-hmm. And so there were pro-Israel protesters there.
Yeah, on campus. My source told me that he watched a megabus pull up, and he asked the bus driver, he said there was like 50 to 60 people that had come bused to campus for the counter-protest, which is curious because this is something that some folks who are critical of these campus protests have been alleging, is that they're busing in outsiders to these campuses to beef up the numbers, make them look bigger than they are.
But then we see
what I've heard, at least from this person about our area campus, is that the opposite is the case.
Do we have any idea who organized these folks? Or
I have no idea.
No clue.
Haven't had a chance to look into it. I really don't know more. But why he was saying it got a little spicy is because there was a small group of counter protesters that made their way from the Golda Meir house down to the Tivoli Quad, and I guess they were chanting, and they were what he described as yelling provocations at the students and the other Palestinian solidarity protesters. And he said that they walked around the quad 2 times, chanting and yelling. And then at the same time, the protesters were gathering arms. And it honestly sounded like kind of an emotional situation. My source said that he got a little upset, and he yelled at somebody that they were supporting genocide. And he was getting yelled at right back, like, oh, you support terrorism. So this was the scene on Friday night at the Tivoli Quad. I
have to say, I haven't heard anything this organized happening in Denver. There's definitely been sort of counter protesters to the protests, but not anything that sounds like this amount of people in one place.
I know, 80 to 100. I hadn't heard that either. And for me, I've heard that the encampment at Tivoli Quad has been growing, the Gaza camp. It looked to me like a few dozen people. It also seemed like people are coming and going quite a bit.
That's what I've seen too. Is like I know a couple folks that are down there for sure, and a lot of in and out folks just sort of functioning day to day there, sort of like not taking turns, but like taking time to be down there, maybe going back doing work or whatever they need to do. So, but fairly peaceful. Everything I've seen is just.
Yeah, I mean, apart from this yelling, I haven't heard anything else. Certainly no violence, but I don't know. I mean, the situation could change rapidly. From what I've heard from the international news, it sounds like the Israeli military is preparing an invasion of Rafah this week. So which this, again is, I mean, we could see the effects here at our area campus.
We'll be watching. That's an interesting update because I agree with you, Paul. I haven't seen anybody talking about that particular incident over the weekend, but we will be watching.
Hey, this is Paul dropping in just shortly after we recorded because we just saw some international news from Reuters. Hamas apparently announced on Monday that it has accepted a ceasefire proposal from Egypt and Qatar to stop the hostilities with Israel. So we'll see if that means there's no invasion of Rafah this week. These things are fast moving. You never know. I certainly don't know, but we wanted you to have the most current information possible. And that's all we know now. Back to the show.
This episode is brought to you by the Colorado Wine Board. Because the wine community here is like surprisingly robust. I mean, think about Bigsby's Folly and Infinite Monkey Theorem here in Denver alone. And there are urban wineries all across the Front Range. Then there's the Western Slope, Paonia, Palisade. Hello, Palisade wine? Are you kidding me? It didn't used to really be a thing, but from what I hear, it's very much a thing now. There are more than 165 wineries across Colorado to explore, and they produce all sorts of wine that reflect our unique culture and climate. So finding a label that you're going to love is easy, no matter where your adventure takes you. Discover it for yourself and support local winemakers at coloradowine.com. That's coloradowine.com. This episode is brought to you by the Denver Botanic Gardens. It's time for the 75th annual Spring Plant Sale at the Denver Botanic Gardens. Mark your calendars for Friday and Saturday, May 10th and 11th. Admission is free, but you must register in advance at botanicgardens.org. Registering my husband, Greg, right now for the plants I want him to pick out and plant in our yard for me. Shop from 15 different plant divisions, including annuals, houseplants, herbs and veggies, and specialties like aquatics, container garden in a bag, and plants grown right at the gardens. The garden's horticulture staff will be on site to answer any and all plant questions you may have. This sale emphasizes water-smart and native plants that are perfect for our semi-arid climate. They'll be great for a beautiful landscape that doesn't require a bunch of water. For more details, registration information, and a catalog of available plants, go to botanicgardens.org. That's botanicgardens.org. Okay, let's go on to our next story.
Let's do it. This is a big one.
It's big. It's a big week at the Capitol.
Yes.
We're coming to the end of the session. Decisions are being made. Tensions are high. Again, we've been talking about some of these bills throughout the session. Where are we right now? What are we looking at? What are we talking about?
Actually, why don't we start with you, Bree? Because there's an issue that's sort of been percolating that I know a lot of our listeners would really like to hear from you, because you have some personal experience. And this is the conversation around alcohol at the Capitol.
Yeah.
But maybe if folks haven't heard anything about this, can you maybe catch us up on specifically the situation with State Senator Faith Winter?
Sure. So Representative Faith Winter stepped down as chair of the Senate Transportation and Energy Committee early April after she allegedly appeared seemingly intoxicated at a public meeting concerning the opening of a mental health facility in North Glen. So this was a city issue in North Glen where she showed up as a representative. This was not at the State House.
So this was after her day of work at the State House, where she's working on all sorts of transportation bills. Then she goes to this community meeting. Yeah,
it's like an after work community meeting to talk about the potential opening of this facility.
Right. But she appears to be drunk.
She appeared intoxicated. So she stepped down. She said she was going to take some time to address personal issues with alcohol. A few weeks later, she reappeared at the Capitol back to work. But sort of in light of that, North Glen City Council unanimously voted last week to send a resolution to Senate President Steve Fenberg asking him to launch an ethics complaint against Senator Faith Winter, a Democrat. They allege that Winter, quote, failed to uphold her office with integrity. So that's kind of where we are. Is the city of North Glen seems to be taking something into their hands that they feel that state legislators are not.
That wasn't
fully
addressing at the Capitol, which is interesting because, I mean, from everything I've heard, and I have been talking to people about this the last few weeks, and to his credit, Jesse Paul from the Colorado Sun was the one that actually broke this story. But it sounds like this conversation around alcohol, it's been kind of an open secret.
Yeah, Benta Birkeland at CPR did a really deep dive into just trying to talk to folks at other legislators at the Capitol, trying to find out, was this an isolated incident? What is the environment there? And what she found in her reporting was it is kind of, I don't know if it's necessarily an open secret, but it seems to be that alcohol plays a role in the culture.
Like what?
I don't want to necessarily say just like late nights when they're figuring, when they're really diving deep into stuff. It really is kind of just a part of the culture, like grabbing drinks with folks, but also like having drinks in your own office. It's not like they're going to a bar. And so I think that's where the issue kind of lies, is it's part of the actual culture of the work day for folks on all sides, I would say, of the political spectrum, for sure.
Interesting. Of course, this also comes after, earlier this session, it was Republican Representative Mike Lynch who stepped down as House Minority Leader after reports that he had been busted for driving under the influence of alcohol. And then a couple of years ago, a very similar story, Democrat Representative Matt Gray arrested for driving under the influence to pick up his kids after work at the Capitol.
Yeah, it's... For folks that don't know, I've been sober for going on 17 years this year from alcohol. And so I think about this stuff a lot. I think about how it impacts what we do every day. And this is like something that's not, it's not just legislators, I feel like. This is a lot of industries you can look. Journalists ourselves are well known for addiction issues. Any high stress jobs. I have a friend in the funeral industry, for instance. That's another industry where they see a lot of struggles with alcohol. And so it's not that it's not surprising to me, but there's just this different layer when you are elected by people and represent people, right? You're not hired, you're elected. And I think that changes the tone a little bit of what's acceptable and what's not. I think with the Representative Winter situation, I found this quote really interesting. Colorado Politics reported Mayor Pro Tem Shannon Lukeman Hiramasa noted that she had a meeting with Winter a week prior to the April 3rd meeting, and that Winter was intoxicated at that meeting as well.
Yeah, so I think this is the kind of story I've heard in the past, specifically about State Senator Winter. So it sounds like it's been
a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's different kinds of addiction, different substances, how these interact with your social life. Alcohol's really tough because it's so prevalent and so just accessible and acceptable. You know what I mean? It's I don't know how to say it with that. I don't want to stigmatize other drugs, but I just know that with alcohol, that level of acceptability makes it almost harder to address sometimes, because how do you tell somebody they're drinking too much when you just had a drink with them? You know what I mean? So there may be legislators who are acknowledging or seeing this behavior from Representative Winter or other representatives, but it's kind of like, how do you call it out when you're participating in it as well?
Yeah.
And so that's where the open secret part makes a lot of sense to me, is some folks also don't want to be looking inside it themselves. And so they all definitely don't want to be pointing a finger at somebody else, because then people might start looking at them.
Yeah.
So
it's just kind of surprising to me, though. I mean, I understand how it works, but like one of the stories from Benta Berkland's reporting just... I can't believe I didn't know that this happened. That the fact that it was Don Coram, the Republican state senator, who talked about the fact that he and Dominic Moreno, a Democrat, were the beer pong champions, and that they had a beer pong table in a room just off of the floor at the Capitol.
But then there was like this comment about like, we can't make things be a frat house. And I was like, but it was actively acting like a frat house.
Yeah.
So, but that's the line blurring part too, is like, at what point are we so deep in that everybody's pointing fingers at each other? Because you can't play beer pong by yourself.
I wonder, maybe we should go over to the Capitol at some point. And I think for the media too, they're kind of part of it. Because like if you're a State House reporter, you're there every day.
Yeah.
Like you're building relationships with these people. These are your sources. So like you also have an interest in not
revealing this information.
Yeah.
Or at least reporting on it, or finding the appropriate way to report on it. Because if it's
maybe that even more so,
it's part of the culture. It's hard to know if it's something that not should be stigmatized, but at least brought to light. Because again, I think when we have an issue like this, and then that story from CPR digs into how many people were involved in it, there just is not a way to know when is this a problem, you know, until somebody really shows up to the but that's when it's like, oh, it got exposed to the public.
Yeah.
And I struggle with how to deal with this, because everybody's rock bottom is different. I will say, as someone in recovery, you don't know when their rock bottom is going to be. But also, when I hit rock bottom, I wasn't responsible for other people in my job or in my personal life. And I think there's just a different layer of responsibility there, where you have to acknowledge, like, people elected me, and I need to get my stuff together, not just for myself, but for my constituents, if I want to continue to do this job.
I worry about that. I don't know what to make of it, though, as a voter.
Yeah, I don't know either, because again, we're all out at bars drinking. There's plenty of jobs where, I mean, think about this sort of culture of the office, right, that we've talked about, that's been lost, and the ways that they entice folks to come back to offices. Like, we're in an office right now that has a beer on tap.
That's true.
You
That's
know
a
what
funny
I mean?
connection, yeah.
So it's like kind of a part, and it's just this constant struggle for folks who struggle with alcohol like myself. It is literally in almost every aspect of your life. So it's hard to put a fine line down, because then all of a sudden you don't want to create this atmosphere of like teetotaling, because like that also sucks, because then there's the whole, look, us sober people are a whole other problem in ourselves. We can be very martyry, and we can be very high horsey about how we're, I don't know, it's this fine
holier
line.
than thou
Yes,
stuff, yeah.
So much. And like, I have been in it for 17 years, and I have absolutely been guilty of that behavior, and it is obnoxious. And like, I don't want to be around that either. So I could see where like maybe the State House doesn't want to feel like that way. If anything, the hope that I have as a sober person is this brings people to a better conversation, a more public conversation, honesty, maybe other folks addressing their own issues, and also creating a supportive environment where it can get better. Because the thing that I struggled with too in this story was some folks saying it felt like a thing you had to do if you wanted to get some stuff done, was you had to have a drink with somebody.
Yeah.
And that kind of pressure, as an alcoholic in recovery, I do not like that. That's not a good feeling. And so, especially someone early on in their recovery, I mean, hopefully like Senator Winter, I mean, she's going to need to be around a lot of supportive people. That's the way that I got sober, was I had a community around me that supported that. It's really hard. You can't just walk back into the lion's den and hope that it's going to get better. Mm-hmm. So I hope for her sake and everyone else's that this is just maybe a wake-up call to how much folks maybe are drinking, and at least cut back a little bit. I don't know.
Let's leave it there. I think that was a great place to end. We'll keep talking about this. I find this issue fascinating because I find it totally understandable how it could happen.
Totally.
But it's a problem.
Absolutely.
More fun at the Capitol. One other issue we wanted to talk about.
Yeah. Okay. We have talked about this. We talked about this bill earlier this year because we have been on what we call Landlord Watch.
Landlord Watch.
Paying attention to all things to do with housing, because there's so many aspects of housing we cover on the show. One of them is the legislative side. Paul, we talked about this rent algorithm bill earlier in the session. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so very briefly, I mean, this is an idea about how rents are getting set, and the possibility that these companies, these big companies that manage buildings where apartments are colluding by contracting with companies that offer software with algorithms that help you set rent more efficiently, would be their
would
pitch.
be their argument, yes. Yeah.
Now, one of these companies in particular has come under fire, especially from Democrats in our House of Representatives. This is where the bill came from, but the company's called RealPage. And ever since it was subject of a ProPublica investigation, they're actually now under federal investigation for the software that they offer, because company officials, RealPage company officials, told ProPublica that their software was driving higher rents.
This is the part I can't believe. Like when we get to the legislative side. So this information is out there.
The information is out there. Now the federal investigation is still ongoing. And I think that's what some of the Democrats on the Senate side, who are a little bit more cautious about this proposal, brought up. But the fun part is last week, and this is just a little taste of what goes on in the Capitol and like what's going to get even more exciting this week as we get into crunch time. But this dynamic about what happened to this bill, I thought was just fascinating. And it's so instructive about how power is wielded at the legislature, and specifically how these landlords are protecting themselves. So here's what happened. Last week, Fort Collins Democrat Joanne Ganal, I hope I pronounced that right. I'm sorry if I didn't. She proposed an amendment to this bill that would allow algorithms to set rents so long as the data is publicly available. Now, this is a counter proposal. This is part of the negotiations that happen. She's a Senate Democrat. She's maybe a little bit more moderate. So that turned out to be the sticking point. That Democrats in the House, who are maybe a little bit more aggressive, want to go a little bit harder at these landlords. They just did not agree to that, and then the bill fell apart.
It just died.
It's dead. It's dead. But here's where it gets interesting, because then Denver Democrat Julie Gonzalez, who we've had on the show, friend of the show, she told the Denver Post that same amendment had been offered to her in its entirety, the exact text, by a lobbyist for RealPage a few weeks prior. So she's alleging that this was just a company plant that then got stuck into this bill by this Fort Collins Democrat, Ganal. Now Ganal says she doesn't, I don't think she specifically denied that happened, but she also said that the amendment still aligned with her way of thinking about the issue, which may be true.
I don't know. I'd see that too and go,
I know. Isn't that interesting?
there?
I think it's actually quite common. Like I used to work on like national legislation, and you'd see like outsiders writing bills. I think it's pretty common for lobbying groups to write bills, but then to actually get someone to propose your bill, to be so cozy with them that they do that's a different thing to me.
Also, in the current climate of Colorado, in terms of where we are with the rent conversation, with the affordability conversation, with the housing conversation, that is not a good look to me.
It's such a
I would be
push-pull.
side-eyeing that as well, as the way the Senadora did, for sure.
Yeah. Well, here a couple of quotes from the supporters of the bill, just to wrap this up. Javier Mabry, great champion of renters, former evictions lawyer, pretty new to the legislature. He's a Democrat on the House. He supported the bill. He said, "To be clear, this means that several Senate Dems sided with a company that is being criminally investigated by the U.S. Department of Justice for price fixing in the rental market."
Ooh.
And apparently Gonzalez, after this bill died in committee, this was the quote of the article from the Post, she reportedly stopped by the lobbyists' room at the Capitol after the vote, and she told them, "You made your money today."
Mic drop from the Senadora. I'll be curious to see if they try to re-propose this bill next session, and if something different comes out of that DOJ investigation.
I think that'll be the thing.
You think that'll be the thing?
If the federal investigation turns up something conclusive, then we're going to have a different conversation next spring.
I'll be curious, because we also know that these legislators that work on the housing and affordability, like Javier Mabry about the rent control stuff, they're not giving up anytime soon.
No, absolutely not. It's a huge issue.
I feel like it's a cornerstone issue for a lot of Dems at that level right now.
And to be fair to the other side of this, they can make the exact same argument. Like you can say that you're acting in favor of housing affordability by trying to reduce restrictions on landlords, because you can say that it would help stimulate the housing supply and then bring down prices that way. That's just a different argument. I think the values here at the core, at least for some of these people involved, are the same.
Paul, you have a mortgage, right?
Yeah.
You pay a mortgage. I pay a mortgage. Your mortgage is the same every month, right?
Yeah.
We don't know what that feels. I just can't imagine what that feels like. It's so different for folks when they're waiting to figure out, is my rent going to go up this year? Or how is it going to go up based on, does it feel like it's something that's happening as of the market? Or is it just because this algorithm decided it? I don't know. I can just see then that this could make things for renters stressful, more stressful than it already is. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
So now we're going to take one more quick break, but we have something very special. And for members, if you're listening right now on the ad-free members feed, you are about to get an exclusive preview of a big project that we are so excited to reveal to the world. We're going to reveal it to everybody very, very soon. But for members, after this break, you're going to get to hear it first. Now, for non-members, we got a great interview for you as well with our sponsors over at Pine Melon to talk about a new way to get local groceries delivered. And there's a little deal in there for you if you want to get a deal on your first order. But for members, right now, this is something very cool.
And if you want to sign up, you can sign up right now. You can go to membership.citycast.fm, sign up to be a member today, support us as local journalists, and get a little inside scoop on what we're working on. This episode is brought to you by Fetch. Fetch is a kennel alternative right here in Denver, not a traditional doggy daycare or boarding school. They offer one-on-one private pet care for all kinds of pets, both furry and non-furry. And their employees are experienced, insured, bonded, and background checked, so you can rest easy knowing your pet is in good hands. Basically, they know pets. I used to watch a Burmese mountain dog named Sven, who was just like walking a polar bear. It was insane. Fetch offers pet sitting, dog walking, pet taxi, medication administration, and more. And he hated going on walks. I could like walk him around the block, and then he'd just like to lay in the bathtub. So if you're looking for high quality pet care you can trust, check out Fetch at northdenver.fetchpetcare.com. That's northdenver.fetchpetcare.com.
Mom deserves the best, and there's no better place to shop for Mother's Day than Whole Foods Market. They're your destination for unbeatable savings, from premium gifts to show-stopping flowers and irresistible desserts. Start by saving 33% with Prime on all body care and candles. Then get a 15-stem bunch of tulips for just $9.99 each with Prime. Round out Mom's menu with festive rosé, irresistible berry chantilly cake, and more special treats. Come celebrate Mother's Day at Whole Foods Market.
Hey, I'm Will Fulton, CityCast Content Director, here with Emma Alanis, the head of local partnerships at Pine Melon. Emma, what's up? How are you?
Hi, how are you? I'm fabulous today.
I am doing well, and I'm so excited to talk to you about Pine Melon because, over the past few years, I feel like we've seen so many different food delivery services in Colorado, but Pine Melon is approaching things in a really sustainable, locally focused way that, makes you feel good about the food you're eating and the businesses you're supporting. So can you talk a little bit more about what you do at Pine Melon and what your mission is?
Pine Melon is a locally sourced online grocery service. We function as a website, but also as an app. And our main mission is to really support and work with farmers, ranchers, and artists and producers to meet them where they are. Help them grow their business past the farmers market and grow their brand to be part of customers' weekly grocery order, not something that they only purchase once and then they never think about again. So we really believe there's no reason why customers can't enjoy convenience and local goods all in one click. So that's what Pine Melon is really here to do by offering same-day delivery 7 days a week. We kind of say it's like 3-hour delivery because you can order within 3 hours and honestly receive the order to your door. So we really want to provide a way that's feasible for both parties and really bridges the gap in our food system.
Awesome. How do you actually operate sustainably and cut down on things like food waste, as I'm sure that's not easy?
We partner with a number of different Denver-based organizations. So Wompost is a woman-owned compost collective in Aurora. We also partner with Denver Food Rescue, which they come by about 2 or 3 times a week to rescue any of those products before they're at that point. So those just go back to thousands of people around the community, people in need, to help Denver residents in need.
It's amazing. So, I keep seeing this word on some of your promotional materials and your website, this term solar punk. I think I've seen that around the internet a little bit, but what does that mean and how does it apply to what you do at Pine Melon?
Solar punk is an interesting term, but I think it really encompasses everything that we are working towards. So the opposite of solar punk is cyberpunk, imagining a future where technology is just really advanced, but society is kind of messed up and gets controlled by big companies. And then solar punk is kind of the opposite of that. It's imagining a future where we use cool green technology to make the world better and work together really nicely and cohesively, where nature and technology and everything can be more in harmony rather than in large amounts of competition like we're so used to working in.
I like that aesthetic way more than cyberpunk, actually, or steampunk for that matter. Any of the punks, really. That's cool. So one thing that's really appealing to me as someone who is a big believer in local businesses and community is how involved Pine Melon is in Denver and all around Colorado. So your job title is head of local partnerships. How do you foster those relationships and manage to stay involved in the community through your work?
I studied sustainable agriculture and for many years considered myself a farmer myself. I learned in those roles kind of the importance of community and having a community-informed approach to everything that we do. And that's the same concept that I've brought to Pine Melon as we're trying to navigate our local food systems. We're kind of trying to bring the food back in food system by centering our producers, centering our makers, working with them directly to learn their pain points, and then kind of using that knowledge to be able to fill in the gaps. We are a growing company and we have a lot of different resources. We can offer logistical help, marketing help. We can really meet our producers and help them so it doesn't feel like it's just them versus the world. So in my role, I've created partnerships with some local farmer coalitions, farmer market groups, and I've just become a huge advocate for these small producers.
That is amazing. That is such a great mission. And, you said that you were growing and expanding. And I know you recently expanded to Boulder, which is so exciting. Do you have plans to expand to more communities in Colorado? And similarly, what are you most excited about for the future of Pine Melon?
So hopefully we're looking to expand, maybe parts of Longmont or other parts of southern Denver. And then in my role at Pine Melon, I'm most excited to watch Pine Melon become a real solution for small, struggling farmers and producers. We really want to make sure that our producers, our artisans, our makers can do what they do best. And I'm excited to be able to support them so that more people can experience the beauty and joy of real, freshly harvested food and really realize just how easy it is to support local.
That is amazing. That is definitely a mission I can get behind. And I'm actually Googling solar punk aesthetic right now. And I like what I see. So thank you for introducing me to that and telling me a little bit more about Pine Melon. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was so great to be on here. And I'm excited for more people to try real food.
Awesome. All right, check out pinemelon.com to learn more. We'll have that link in our description. And lucky for you, we even have a promo code. Use CITYCASTDENVER for $75 off your first order with Pine Melon. That's CITYCASTDENVER, all caps, no spaces. For same-day delivery, you could have fresh, local food in your fridge today in a few hours. So go do that. And thanks for listening. Bye.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed this show, why not take a minute to tell your lobbyist about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to our morning newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you later.